up guys, Cole Roemer, and I want to show you guys how I learned to do stoppies. Let's go. So I want to give a few little tidbits split up into 3 portions. What helped me learn this stupid trick, to my basic recommendations so you don't get hurt, especially if you're not from the biking world. 2, what a stoppie actually is, and physically what is going on when you're trying to balance on that front wheel. And then 3, just showing you some footage essentially of what that feather is. I do a 2-finger, some people do a 1-finger, some people do a middle finger, but I just get a better jab and then I'm able to put pressure and feather that brake a little more easily. There's 2 basic stepping stones I like to separate before you even start trying a stoppie, because this keeps you safe. So one of those is jumping through the bars once you get to balance point. I recommend doing that on a BMX bike or a very, very light bike. I wouldn't recommend doing it on the Benel or Talari or Suron or anything like that. But you want to practice jumping your front foot through the bars and landing on it, essentially pushing the bike away from you, because worst case scenario, once you get to that balance point and you think you're going to go OTB or over the bars, you need to push that bike away and jump, or else it can land on you. You can land on your chest. It can come up very, very suddenly and fast. So that's basic 1. The second basic step is I highly recommend learning how to skid on the front tire. Don't overdo it, but this is another thing. When you're learning the stoppies, you have to jab that front brake, okay? When you jab that front brake, sometimes that tire can fishtail a little bit, and if you are not used to that, your body can almost get into a fight or flight response and kind of freak out. But if you know what that feels like, it's a lot easier to control if you ever get in that situation. So, and always recommend wearing a helmet as well, especially when you're learning these. So now we're going to move on to what a stoppie really is. I think I almost have them. So ideally what you want to have is something to kick up that back end to get into the stoppie. So there's some YouTube videos out there that the hardest part of a stoppie is getting into it. That's pretty true. And it's also the scariest part. So you want a nice little incline or something to compress that rear suspension so it can shoot you up a couple inches with that rebound and then get you at that timing point to jab that front brake to get you into that or near balance point. Physically what's happening is you compress that rear suspension, you jab with a lot of your pressure on this front wheel, or else you can start to skid, and then you're gonna get to that very, very steep, almost over the bars type of feeling, and then you're gonna let go of the brake. There's gonna be constant, tiny tidbits of pressure on the front brake the whole time, but once you start to feel that wheel drop, then you kind of feather it again. That's what that feather process is. When you feel the back wheel start to dip, you just, boom, hit the front brake a little bit more, but you always have a little bit of pressure on it the entire time throughout the stoppie, unless you're just immensely professional and you're just riding that front wheel with little to no brake. So let me show you what that looks like. So you just want to start by, boom, lifting up that, or compressing the rear suspension, popping up that back wheel, jabbing that front brake. Start by going 5 to 7 to 10 miles an hour into it, and then gradually speed up. I wouldn't go past 10 or 15 miles per hour on the first day. Boom, compress, hit that front brake. Boom, compress, feather that front brake. So that's not quite to balance point, but the more and more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get, the steeper you'll go. Now, bigger wheel set, I actually don't know what size this wheel is, but it's pretty large. So I have more play in my balance point when I'm doing my stoppies. So if you have a tiny 20-inch or something like that, you're not going to have a lot of forgiveness in your stoppie room from where over the bars is, from where balance point is, and where from the drop point is too. Overall, you just want to keep playing with that and then really focus on just going faster and faster and faster into it. That right there was a tiny millisecond of balance point. Got super steep, started rolling that front wheel, and super scary at first. Now, when you do get to balance point, I'm not one that sits in the front. I like to kind of lean back. I put my wrist actually kind of at an angle, and then I like to hold them in an extended position. So when I'm leaning into the stoppie, I'm pushing my body weight kind of backwards to help balance it out with my wrist in that locked extended position. I feel like that helps you not go over the bars. When your wrists start to flex a little bit and give in, that's when you start to want to lean forward, your core weakens, and then you want to shoot your center of gravity forward, and then it can become a little dangerous. Another extremely crucial piece of the Stoppie is when you hit the front brake and you get into it, you actually don't want to hit this back brake, okay? You want to keep that rear wheel spinning because you use it as a gyroscope, so it actually keeps you straight. So as that rear wheel is spinning, you can bring your legs inwards. You don't really want to have them out to the side. You don't want to be leaning with different pressures because that's what can get you going sideways. You want to be knees kind of in, and you just want to keep that rear wheel spinning and keep it going. Now, at the very beginning, I couldn't help but when I hit the front brake, I would also hit the back brake. So I'd be doing this the whole time, and it would stop my back wheel, and it would stop that gyroscope effect. I might not be using that term extremely correctly, but that's how I can describe it. It just keeps you a little bit straighter. Keep that rear wheel spinning, balance point, feather the brake. I did that once, and that was way too steep of a learning curve for me, and I hit that jab and I flipped straight over the bars. I personally like the incline to a little bit of a downhill. My driveway is perfect for it. I don't like the block that wants to kick you up. I think that can be too abrupt sometimes, just my opinion. But what you want to do is jab and then feather. And then I was kind of looking at the brake, which was a little sketchy because I wasn't focused on how steep I was getting. So jab, balance point. So jab, balance point, let go. Rebound up, balance point, and let go. Press jab, try a couple feathers like that. The more you do that, the more speed you will be comfortable with, and the more you'll start to roll that Stoppie going forward. And eventually, you'll be able to compress the rear suspension up where you don't need anything to lift you up. Another thing, when you skid the front tire, it's because you're actually not leaning and committing enough into the Stoppie itself. The times you can skid is because you're leaning too far back, or you're just in an odd position. You're not committing to the Stoppie. You're not committing to that jab. There's another way, it's kind of the moto way, but you lean your body into the front of the bike, and that compresses the forks a little bit more. So if you are going OTB, when you compress those forks, it can kind of slow that effect down. But essentially, what a Stoppie is the pendulum back and forth of the wheel wanting to go back down and the wheel getting almost to the point where you go over the bars. But that is where you start to roll. And that's what a Stoppie is. So hopefully that helped, and hopefully I didn't leave out too much information. I might think of other fun facts or fun pointers later that I forgot to put in the video, but that's how I learned Stoppies, and that's what helped me.